What if I told you that one of the most powerful democracies in the world was digitally breached, not by soldiers, not by spies on the ground, but by anonymous keystrokes from halfway across the globe? In 2016, as America prepared to elect its next president, a silent cyber war was already underway. And at the heart of it was a hack that would shake the foundation of US politics, the breach of the Democratic National Committee. It started quietly. March 2016. A single phishing email, harmless on the surface, landed in the inbox of John Podesta, Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman. One click, and the doors were open. What followed was a data heist of staggering proportions. Thousands of confidential emails, internal memos, strategy documents, all exfiltrated and shipped to an unknown destination. But behind the curtain, US intelligence agencies would later trace the fingerprints to Russia. The culprits? Two mysterious hacking groups, Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear. Their real names unknown. But their methods? Chillingly precise. Linked to Russia's military intelligence, these hackers had been watching, probing, infiltrating US systems for years. The DNC was just one of their biggest trophies. And they didn't stop there. On July 22, 2016, just days before the Democratic National Convention, WikiLeaks released over 19,000 emails from the DNC. The content? Damaging. Embarrassing. Politically explosive. The leak ignited internal party chaos. Fueled conspiracy theories. Undermined voter trust. And gave rise to one terrifying question: was a foreign adversary manipulating the very core of American democracy? The US intelligence community would later conclude, with high confidence, that the Russian government was behind the operation. But who gave the order? And why? The goal wasn't just to steal data. It was to divide. Disrupt. Destabilize. The weapon? Information. The battlefield. Our minds. The 2016 DNC hack marked a new era. Not just a crime against a political party, but an act of digital warfare. One that exposed just how vulnerable even the most powerful nations can be. Final shot: an American flag with lines of code slowly overtaking it. Narrator: final words. In the age of information, truth itself becomes the target. And the greatest weapon may be the one you never see coming. Fade to black, eerie tone lingers. Text on screen: true crime stories. AI subscribe for more chilling cyber mysteries. The emails were leaked. The headlines exploded. The damage was done. But this was only the beginning. As the public consumed the chaos, US intelligence agencies were scrambling behind the scenes. Because they knew something that the public didn't: this wasn't just about the Democratic National Committee, it was part of a much larger operation. They called it Grizzly Steppe, the code name for a sweeping Russian cyber campaign. Behind the masks of Fancy Bear and Cozy Bear were elite cyber soldiers working under the GRU and FSB, Russia's shadowy intelligence arms. But stealing emails was only phase one. The real weapon was disinformation. In the months leading up to the 2016 election, Facebook feeds, Twitter timelines, and YouTube comments were quietly hijacked. Not by bots, but by humans trained to think like Americans, talk like Americans, argue like Americans. They posed as activists, as patriots, as angry voters. But they were puppets, and Russia was pulling the strings. Race, religion, guns, immigration. Every cultural fault line exploited. The goal? Not to support one candidate, but to divide a nation from within. In 2017, a special counsel was appointed. Robert Mueller. His mission: to unravel the web. Mueller's investigation uncovered a network of trolls, hackers, shell companies, and fake identities spread across continents. They found digital fingerprints, server trails, and coded communications. But with every answer came more questions. Who authorized it? What other countries were targeted? And was anyone on US soil complicit? The 2016 hack wasn't just a wake-up call. It was a warning. Elections, once decided at the ballot box, were now being shaped in shadows by algorithms, psychological warfare, and invisible adversaries. The question is no longer, were we attacked? The question is, are we still under attack? The world now knew what happened. But the question was, who exactly did it? Who were the faceless hackers hiding behind code names, fake accounts, and encrypted networks? July 13, 2018. The US Department of Justice unsealed a bombshell indictment. 12 Russian intelligence officers. Their mission, sabotage an American election. The charges were detailed. Names. Ranks. Online aliases. IP addresses. Command hierarchies. The men behind the hack were no longer shadows, they were agents of Russia's GRU, Unit 26165 and Unit 74455. They called it cyber espionage. But make no mistake, this was an act of aggression. An assault not on data, but on democracy. In the digital fog of war, deception is the greatest weapon. Gukaifa 2.0, the hacker persona that claimed credit for the DNC breach, pretended to be a lone Romanian activist. But behind the screen was a trained GRU operative. The FBI cracked the facade. One slip, one login from a Moscow-based IP, unraveled the entire ruse. The mask was off. The GRU didn't just hack emails. They scanned state election systems, probed voter databases, and planted digital backdoors across networks. One state, Illinois, was breached, with 76,000 voter records accessed. But the objective wasn't to change votes. It was to shake confidence. To sow doubt in the system. Because a democracy that doubts itself becomes its own worst enemy. The DNC hack wasn't an isolated incident. It was a playbook used again and again in elections across Europe, Asia, and beyond. France. Germany. Ukraine. No country was safe. And the warning signs were clear: if they could breach America, they could breach anyone. This wasn't about one candidate. It wasn't even about one country. It was about reshaping global power through digital chaos. While the world debated election results and political scandals, another war raged quietly. In basements. In data centers. In intelligence bunkers buried beneath continents. The cyber battlefield knows no borders. No uniforms. No declarations of war. Only keystrokes and consequences. The DNC hack was the first domino. What's coming could be far worse. Because the greatest wars of the future may never fire a single bullet. The DNC hack didn't just compromise emails, it exposed a terrifying truth: the new front line of global warfare isn't made of tanks or missiles, it's made of malware, misinformation, and mass manipulation. In the aftermath of 2016, the world realized if the United States could be breached, anyone could. European elections were next. In 2017, France's presidential race was nearly derailed when Emmanuel Macron's campaign was hit with a massive hack. Emails, documents, internal messages leaked just hours before a critical debate. Sound familiar? Same tactics. Different country. And this time, the hackers tried to leave a different fingerprint to throw investigators off the trail. But the pattern was clear: chaos, confusion, crisis. That was the goal. And it was working. Inside the Pentagon, a quiet question began to rise: should the US strike back? America had its own arsenal of cyber tools. Silent programs capable of shutting down power grids, sabotaging missile systems, even blacking out cities. But launching them could trigger something no one was ready for: open cyber warfare. So instead, the US chose exposure. Indictments. Sanctions. Naming and shaming. In the Kremlin, the message was received and shrugged off. Putin clip: does anyone seriously believe that a group of hackers can influence an American election? Russia denied everything. But they knew the truth. The damage had been done. The seeds of distrust had already been planted. And America was turning on itself. Across the globe, nations began hoarding cyber weapons like nuclear arms. China. Iran. North Korea. Israel. India. Even small states began recruiting hackers, building digital militias. The battlefield was now everywhere and nowhere. And the rules? Still being written. In the years since the DNC hack, attacks have only grown more sophisticated. Deepfakes. AI-generated propaganda. Quantum encryption battles. and sleeper malware lying dormant inside critical infrastructure, waiting to be triggered. The next major war may begin with a simple command: execute. So what have we learned since 2016? That truth can be weaponized. That trust is fragile. And that in the digital age, the battlefield is in your pocket. In a world of infinite information, the greatest crime is knowing which lie to believe. While the world focused on Russia's cyber strike against the 2016 election, something darker was unfolding in the background. A mysterious group had emerged from the shadows, broadcasting riddles, leaking files, and offering some of the most dangerous digital weapons ever created for sale. They called themselves the Shadow Brokers. No one knew who they were. But the tools they carried had only one origin: the National Security Agency. For years, the NSA had been stockpiling cyber weapons, exploits, backdoors, 0 days. Code capable of infiltrating banks, government networks, even nuclear plants. Tools never meant to see the light of day. Until one day, they were gone. Some believed the leaks came from an insider. Others believed it was Russia. But no matter the source, the damage was irreversible. In August 2016, the Shadow Brokers published their first dump, NSA tools for sale to the highest bidder. But no one paid. So they did something far worse: they released them for free. And within months, those tools would be used to launch the most devastating cyber attacks the world had ever seen. May 2017. Hospitals in the UK go dark. Ambulances rerouted. Critical surgeries cancelled. The ransomware attack was called WannaCry. It spread like wildfire across 150 countries in a single day. Behind the scenes, Eternal Blue, the NSA exploit. Modified and weaponized by North Korea. This time, it was Russia. The malware disguised as ransomware, but it wasn't about money. It was about destruction. Global corporations lost billions. Supply chains froze. And it all traced back to code that once belonged to the US government. The leak shattered trust inside the intelligence community. Who could have breached the most secretive agency in the world? Was it a rogue nation? A rogue agent? Or something else? Some believe the Shadow Brokers weren't a group at all, but a front. A smokescreen. Designed to embarrass the US and destroy its credibility. Because the timing wasn't random. The leaks coincided with rising investigations into Russian election interference. Was it retaliation or misdirection? The scariest part? These were yesterday's weapons. What's next remains hidden. Cyber weapons don't expire. They replicate. They evolve. And now they are everywhere. The US created the deadliest digital arsenal in history and lost control. Now, anyone with a grudge and a Wi-Fi signal can rewrite the rules of global power. What if the most powerful weapon in modern warfare wasn't a missile or malware, but your personality profile? After the world was rattled by hacks, leaks, and cyber weapons, came the next evolution in digital warfare: manipulation. In 2018, the world was rocked by another revelation. Not of foreign hackers, but of a company you'd never heard of, holding more power than any intelligence agency. Its name was Cambridge Analytica. Their specialty wasn't hacking systems, it was hacking people. Their weapon? Facebook. Under the guise of a personality quiz, Cambridge Analytica harvested data from 87 million profiles, building psychological dossiers on nearly a third of the US electorate. Every fear. Every trigger. Every pressure point. Catalogued. Quantified. Weaponized. It wasn't politics. It was precision targeting. Military-grade psychological operations used not on enemies overseas, but on voters at home. Different messages for different minds. Designed to polarize. To inflame. To fracture. Behind the curtain stood a man named Alexander Nix, CEO of Cambridge Analytica. Eton-educated. Polished. But his company operated in shadows. Alexander Nix. We do just a few things behind the scenes. They weren't just working on US elections. They'd run influence campaigns in over 60 countries, shaping outcomes from Africa to South Asia. They called it behavioral change. But it was digital mind control sold to the highest bidder. The Facebook Cambridge Analytica scandal didn't just expose a breach of data, it revealed a breach of democracy. How much did Facebook know? Why didn't they stop it? And who else was doing the same thing without getting caught? The truth was terrifying. The battle for your brain had already begun, and you didn't even notice. Today, disinformation spreads faster than facts. Fake accounts drive real movements. And every opinion might be planted. Truth is no longer absolute. It's a battleground. Shaped, molded, sold. In the age of information, the crime isn't theft. It's control. And the most dangerous place might be your own mind.